Some discoveries change everything you thought you knew about the world. What three hikers found on October 14, 2019, in the remote wilderness of western North Carolina would shake an entire community to its core, and finally bring closure to families who had been waiting 43 years for answers. This is the story of 10 teenagers who vanished without a trace in 1976, and the hidden tunnel that held their secret for over 4 decades. But before we dive into what was found in that cave, you need to understand what happened on a summer night in June 1976 that would haunt a small mountain town for generations. Millbrook, North Carolina. Population 2,847. The kind of town where everyone knows everyone, where doors stay unlocked, and where teenagers gather at Murphy's Diner every Friday night for milkshakes and jukebox music. June 18, 1976. School had just let out for summer. 17-year-old Sarah Mitchell was celebrating her graduation with her closest friends. There was her boyfriend, James Parker, the star quarterback everyone said was headed for college on a full scholarship. Her best friend since kindergarten, Rebecca Thompson, who dreamed of becoming a nurse. Michael Chen, the quiet kid who built radios in his garage. And 7 others. 10 teenagers, all between 16 and 18 years old. 10 futures full of promise. They told their parents they were going camping at Crystal Lake, a popular spot just 5 miles outside town. Nothing unusual. They'd done it 100 times before. But they never made it to Crystal Lake. When Sarah's mother, Dorothy Mitchell, woke up Sunday morning expecting her daughter to walk through the door with stories about s'mores and stargazing, she was met with silence. By noon, when none of the 10 teenagers had returned home, panic began to spread through Millbrook like wildfire. The search lasted 6 weeks. Over 3,000 volunteers combed through 400 square miles of dense Appalachian forest. Search dogs picked up trails that led nowhere. Helicopters flew grid patterns until their fuel tanks ran empty. The FBI was called in. Psychics offered their services. Every lead turned into a dead end. Sarah's car, a powder blue 1972 Chevy Nova, was found abandoned on Highway 421, 15 miles in the opposite direction of Crystal Lake. The keys were still in the ignition. The radio was still on, stuck on a station that had gone off the air. And here's what made investigators' blood run cold. The trunk was open, and inside were all their camping supplies, completely untouched. The cooler still had ice in it. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air. Theories spread like poison through the community. Some said they'd run away to California to join a commune. Others whispered about trafficking rings. The darkest rumors spoke of ritual sacrifices. But without bodies, without evidence, without a single concrete lead, the case went cold. By 1977, Millbrook had become known as the town that lost its children. Parents stopped letting their kids out after dark. The annual summer festival was canceled, never to return. Murphy's Diner closed its doors permanently because no one could bear to sit in the booths where those 10 teenagers had laughed just days before they disappeared. Dorothy Mitchell never moved. She kept Sarah's room exactly as it was, waiting. Every year on June 18th, she would place 10 white roses at the town square memorial, one for each missing child. She did this for 43 years. But here's what no one knew about those 10 teenagers. Those 10 teenagers never left Millbrook at all. October 14, 2019. 3 experienced hikers, Amanda Rodriguez, Tyler Bennett, and Marcus Johnson, were exploring an unmapped section of the Pisgah National Forest, about 8 miles from where Millbrook used to be. I say used to be because the town had slowly died over the decades, its population dwindling to just under 400 residents. The hikers were documenting cave systems for a geological survey when Tyler noticed something unusual. Behind a thick curtain of roots and undergrowth, partially concealed by a rock slide, was a cave entrance that wasn't on any map. Now, experienced cavers know that unmapped caves are both exciting and dangerous. But something about this particular entrance felt different. The air coming from inside wasn't the usual musty cave smell. It was wrong, stale in a way that suggested the cave had been sealed for a long time. They marked their location and grabbed their gear and went in. The main chamber was small, maybe 20 feet across, limestone walls, typical for the region. But then Marcus's flashlight caught something that made him freeze. Scratches on the wall. Fresh scratches, or at least fresher than they should have been.
Rebecca wrote about wanting to see the ocean for the first
not scratches.
time.
Words.
On month 3,
carved into the limestone with what looked like a rock
survived on
or
water
piece of
that
metal.
dripped from the cave
Desperate,
ceiling,
jagged
collected
letters
in a
that
metal canteen. The notebook entries became shorter, more desperate. They talked about their families. They wrote letters they knew would never be read. One entry, from what they believed was Christmas 1976, simply said, "We sang carols today. James said his mom always made hot chocolate on Christmas. We pretended we could taste it." The forensic team estimated that most of them died between month 4 and month 6. Starvation, dehydration, the cold. One by one, until only 2 remained. The tick marks on the wall continued for 2 more years. 2 of them survived for 2 more years, alone with the bodies of their friends, in absolute darkness, with nothing but hope that someone, someday, would find them. DNA testing identified all 10 teenagers. After 43 years, the families finally had answers. Dorothy Mitchell was 91 years old when the police came to her door. She'd been placing those roses at the memorial for 43 years. When they told her they'd found Sarah, that her daughter had been only 8 miles away this whole time, she didn't cry. She just nodded slowly and said, "I knew she wouldn't leave me. I knew she was still here." Dorothy died 3 months later. At her funeral, they found a letter she'd written to Sarah every single year on June 18th, sealed in envelopes she'd kept in a box under her bed. 43 letters. She'd written them knowing Sarah would never read them, but unable to stop herself from trying to reach her daughter. The last letter, written just weeks before the discovery, said, "I'm so tired, baby girl, but I'm still waiting. I'll always wait for you." The discovery sent shockwaves across the nation. But for the people of Millbrook, it was something else entirely. Closure, yes, but also a grief so profound that it opened up 43-year-old wounds all over again. James Parker's father, William, had spent his entire life savings hiring private investigators. He died in 2003, never knowing what happened to his son. His widow, Catherine, now 84, said, "I'm grateful James has been found, but my husband died of a broken heart, searching." That's what this tragedy took from us, not just our children, but our whole lives. Michael Chen's younger sister, Lisa, had been 8 years old when her brother disappeared. She'd spent her entire childhood believing he abandoned the family. The guilt she felt when she learned the truth, the years she'd spent angry at him, nearly destroyed her. "I thought he didn't love us enough to stay," she said, through tears at the memorial service. But he was there, so close, dying slowly, probably thinking about us every single day. And we never found him. We never saved her. Experts say the psychological impact of a disappearance without closure is one of the most traumatic experiences a family can endure. The families of Millbrook had lived in limbo for over 4 decades, unable to grieve, unable to move forward, trapped in an endless cycle of hope and despair. Now, with their children finally laid to rest, they faced a different kind of pain. The pain of knowing exactly how their children had suffered.
The pain of knowing they'd been so close, that if the search had expanded just 3 more miles, if someone had noticed that unmapped cave, they might have been saved. The national conversation that followed was intense. Why hadn't the search been more thorough? Why had it been called off after 6 weeks? Could those children have been saved if more resources had been devoted to the case? The truth is complicated.
If you've made it this
In
far,
1976, search
I
and
know
rescue
this story was
technology
heavy.
was
I know
primitive
it hurt.
compared to today.
Stories like this aren't easy to
Ground-penetrating
hear,
radar,
but they're important.
thermal imaging, the
They're important
sophisticated
because they
cave
remind
detection
us of
systems we
something
have
we
now.
often forget
None of
in our
that
busy,
existed.
distracted
The
lives.
search teams did everything
Life
they could
is
with what they
fragile.
had. But that
Heartbreakingly,
doesn't make it any
impossibly
easier
fragile.
for the families to
Those
accept.
10 teenagers woke up
cave
on
has been
June 18,
permanently sealed now.
1976,
A memorial
thinking it was
stand-
just another summer day. They were excited about camping, about being together, about all the tomorrows they thought they had waiting for them. They had no idea that their adventure would end in darkness, that their families would spend 43 years wondering, searching, never giving up hope. But here's what I want you to take away from this story. In their final moments, in their final days and months and years, those teenagers had a choice. They could have turned on each other. They could have descended into chaos and despair. But they didn't. They stayed together. They supported each other. They loved each other. Even when hope was gone, they didn't abandon their humanity. And Dorothy Mitchell, Sarah's mother, she also had a choice. She could have given up. She could have moved away, tried to forget, tried to build a new life somewhere else. But she didn't. For 43 years, she placed those roses. For 43 years, she kept her daughter's room ready. For 43 years, she refused to stop loving, refused to stop believing. That's the real story here. Not the tragedy, not the cave or the tunnel or the discovery. It's the love that endures, the hope that refuses to die, the human spirit that survives even when everything else is taken away. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Right now, before you click away from this video, think about the people you love, your parents, your children, your siblings, your friends, the people who make your life worth living. And I want you to ask yourself, when was the last time you told them? When was the last time you really, truly told them how much they mean to you? Don't wait. Don't assume there will always be another chance. Don't assume tomorrow is guaranteed. Call your mom. Hug your kids. Text your best friend and tell them you love them. Forgive that argument you've been holding on to. Repair that broken relationship. Say the things you've been meaning to say. Because Sarah Mitchell never got to tell her mother goodbye. James Parker never got to accept that scholarship. Rebecca Thompson never got to become a nurse. Michael Chen never got to build another radio. They ran out of tomorrows. But you still have today. You still have this moment. Don't waste it. Live like those 10 teenagers would have lived if they'd gotten the chance. Love like Dorothy Mitchell loved, unconditionally and relentlessly. Hold on like those families held on, even when everyone else said to let go. Life is fragile, but love is eternal. Love survives the darkness. Love waits 43 years.